And we were at the edge of this house. We had a small chain link garden fence which we were shooting through at them. In this corn, 10 metres away, you could see them, the little sort of dark hunched figures, moving left and right. And incredibly brave what they were doing, I have to say. I have every respect for them. But unfortunately, they were firing at us non-stop tracer bullets from their Kalashnikovs. Now, tracer bullets are like a small incendiary bullet. It gives off a green or an orange or a red flare, if you like, signal. As you fire it, it looks very nice, very, like fireworks when it's fired. And so these guys were firing at us, and it was very easy to see where they were shooting from. You could pinpoint exactly where they were. So it was a very simple matter just to double tap onto their position. And that then kind of dealt with, they kind of melted away. I remember on one occasion, I definitely I probably got two, killed two. Well, I hope I didn't kill them, but they probably were killed, and possibly a third as well. But I think, they were probably dragged. It's difficult. Childhood wasn't so easy because there was a lot of upheaval in my early life. We emigrated to Australia, and after 4 years we came back. Then there were moves several times over the years, so there wasn't a lot of stability in my childhood. And I think this affected my the way that I sort of approached the world. On a positive level, it made me more self-reliant and not so dependent upon networks of friends or as other people. Although I wouldn't say I was a loner in any way, but it meant that I had to overcome a sort of natural shyness and timidity. And often be the first person to make the move in any social group because I was more often than not the outsider. I always recall two incidents. One when I was about 9 or 10, and I was being mercilessly bullied by a gang of kids at school, led by one in particular whose father was extremely violent towards his mother. They'd fled from London because of it. And he took out his problems on the rest of the school, this boy, and ran a campaign of, juvenile terror. And there was a boy at this school had just arrived, a kid called Dale. He came from a really poor, underprivileged family, and I was, what it is when you're bullied, people kind of start to keep a distance from you, and other kids didn't bother with me so much, and. I felt sorry for this kid, Dale. Nobody was talking to him either. They were just laughing at his threadbare jersey and the holes in his trousers. And we kind of just sort of hooked up. And I remember this lad with his gang descended on us. And this little boy, Dale, because I'd been the only person in the school that had extended any kind of friendship towards him, he just put himself in between me and this bully. And I remember him saying, "Leave him alone, right? Leave him alone." And that was the first time that anybody had, at their own expense, for no interest of their own, had stepped in front and tried to stop this. Yeah, when I was about 13. We were at the bigger school then, secondary school, and the same thing was going on. Except it wasn't me that was a victim. It was one of these sort of. He was a new boy to the school. His family had not long been over from Pakistan. He was a Muslim, and although it was a very mixed race school anyway, he just stood out because culturally he stood out, and the body language and the in jokes he wasn't familiar with. And he was a very thin lad, big buck teeth, pasty skin, thick glasses, absolute guaranteed target. And one of these lads, an Afro-Caribbean boy who was well known for being a problem, started pushing him around and making his life a misery. And I remember, I think it was the second time I saw it. It was one lunchtime in the playground, and he was shoving him around, and something just snapped inside me. I just remember going really cold inside. I think I ran all the way through 200 other kids to get to this situation, and I just slammed into this kid that was doing the bullying, and I just pinned him against the wall. And the fury in me, the anger, it was like white hot, and I didn't beat him up or anything, but I remember pinning him to the wall and then shoving him around in the same way and saying, "Do you like it? Do you like it? How do you like it?" So and obviously it was diffused. I think some bigger boys came and some prefects or something said, all right, calm down, all the rest of it. But that boy and the victim and his subsequent friends always treated me with a kind of strange sort of deference and respect. It felt nice ever after, and I realised then that I'd really fundamentally done the right thing. But I'd always wanted to be an actor. My parents, I was very fortunate in that my parents sent me every Saturday to drama school in the morning and like a stage school in the afternoon. And the lady that ran it, she virtually had a monopoly on all the theatre and television work in Bristol, where I grew up at that time. And so that gave me the practical experience. Her son was also a theatrical director as well, and he would put on shows, and when he needed children to be in them, he would also put on musicals that involved children as well. Oliver was one. He took that to the Isle of Wight, so he transplanted about 30 kids to the Isle of Wight one summer, 1982, and I had a leading role in that as well. So again, there was responsibilities as well as just the enjoyment and the privilege. And I remember they accommodated us in a holiday camp at Woodside Bay, and I have to say, at the age of 15, that was the happiest, most perfect summer of my entire life. Nothing has matched it since, really, in terms of just the sense of I never knew it was possible to be so free and so happy as that time. Those couple of months, 3 months, I think we were there, and but unfortunately, it didn't really pan out when I left school. I couldn't get. There was no funding. The family didn't have resources to put me through university or drama school. It just wasn't there. It just wasn't possible at that time. And I determined that I would, if I couldn't get into drama college anywhere, then I would do something completely different, and focused on the idea of joining the military. And I couldn't get a commission. I couldn't even get into the military at one stage because I have a skin condition called eczema, and I just kept failing the medicals. And for me, that seemed to leave me no options. Because I was very unhappy there, very unhappy in the forces. There was none of the comradeship I'd been led to believe would exist. People were totally self-interested. I'm very, very disappointed with the way that things were run. How can I say? It sounds a really arrogant thing to say, and I hope perhaps other people that have served in khaki will understand, but as an individual I came up to their standards, but as an organisation they didn't come up to mine, and that sort of sense of feeling of being let down, and my expectations weren't very high really, but that sense of being let down was I think what drove me to knock it on the head. Then the fighting broke out. First of all in Slovenia, right on the Austrian border, right next to Italy, up there, the Brenner Pass and all those places, right in the dead centre heart of Europe, and people just absolutely paralysed, and just pretending it wasn't happening, and I felt like somebody shouting in a room of deaf mutes, does anybody not realise what's going on? And everybody was going very quiet about the subject. It never came up for discussion in pubs and bars or in the workplace. Every other kind of trivial rubbish did, but never that. And here it was right on the doorstep. And I would say to people, don't you see what's going on? This is going to be like Spain all over again. This man Milosevic and his mental wife Mira, they're gonna pull Europe apart. And I remember, I think it was about August 1991, and there was footage. It was from Serbian TV, and it was footage of these what they called Chetnik paramilitaries, Serbian paramilitary unit of some kind, and they had a piece of artillery, a gun. And the first thing I remember about these blokes were how scruffy looking they were. A lot of them had big beards and that, and I don't want to stereotype. I don't want to go for a cheap dig at Serbian nationalists in that respect, but these guys were scruffy, unshaven. Some of them were overweight as well, a bit like I am now, and they were firing this artillery piece at nothing else except a church. This crew and their other people standing around started to cheer and chant a bit, and and make sort of noises like they were at a football match and their side had just knocked out a particular opponent with a very nasty tackle that had put him out of the game, and there was a laughing, and that was the instant, that was the moment when I said, something must be done. I'm going to do something about it. The decision I'd made at the time was that I would go there, help out in some humanitarian kind of way, performing menial tasks or something like that, for about 3 months, by which time I was sure that that would be all that I could stomach, and then come home and be able to say, well, at least I did something, at least I made a gesture. But when I got there, things turned out quite differently. The Croatians really had their backs to the wall. It was, again, I don't want to sound cliched, but it felt very much like when the Germans crossed into the Low Countries in May 1940 and pushed through the Netherlands, Belgium and into France, and people were being rolled back. There were but streams of refugees and people being bombed heavily, and the enemy having complete control of the sky and dominating what happened. And this was very much what was happening in Croatia, to an equally vicious and serious extent, albeit on a slower pace, at a slower pace. So for me, it was a very easy step to walk through the gate of Tuškanac military police base in the upper part of Zagreb and present myself for service to the National Guard in whatever capacity they felt I could serve them. And that was a very easy decision to make, and one I'm very proud and very happy that I made.